Now that we've laid the foundation, let's talk about Tavistock. Now, this is going to be a combination of who's backing Trump and, of course, social engineering. See, Tavistock was started in 1944 in its modern incarnation. It was split off into came from the Tavistock Council or some shit. It was split off into the Tavistock Institute in 1944. The other part became the NHS, which is the United Kingdom's free healthcare system. Anyway, and it was in response to the Bretton Woods Agreement in New Hampshire, which is what made the American dollar the world's reserve currency. Now, there was a fellow in UK named John Keynes. John Keynes wanted this coin called the Bancor to be the global currency because it wasn't tied to any nation. It was completely neutral. That means that nobody would have absolute power. America said, fuck that. Bankrupted England, Bretton Woods, the rest is history. Now, the Tavistock Institute, they've been working for years to control not only America and their politics, but also the politics of other Western nations in Europe. A lot of this shit that they attribute to the tribalists, and the tribalists are involved, make no mistake about that, but a lot of stuff that they attribute to the tribalists is actually the goddamn Tavistock, it's Chatham House, and all these other Anglo-Saxon organizations in the UK. They are. Goddamn, the hell did I eat? And they're based around this thing called social environmental turbulence, which is based off the theories of Edward Bernays, Freud's nephew. The purpose of this was to essentially mold the entire West through social crises, and they still do this today. That's where you get your color revolutions, your false flags. The CIA's got a lot of these guys in it. MI6, Five Eyes in general has a lot of these guys. Mossad has a lot of these guys. CIA and Mossad are closer than CIA is to the U.S. military. To the tribalists, America's backing you. That's why you got power. That's why you're still there. Because they need to control the Suez. You can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to me. If you were that goddamn powerful, you wouldn't need $8 billion in military aid. You'd create your own goddamn missile defense. You wouldn't need the Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is based off America's technology. Be quiet. Sit down, boy. And enjoy my Twitter campaign, by the way. Anyway. Set. So, they use social environmental turbulence, which is essentially manipulating the masses through various crises. These fabricated crises destroy the natural fabric of society. They used it in the 60s to break down the family, hijacking counterculture, taking away from nuclear families, and just different ways of non-capitalist ideology, and turning it into weird stuff. Propping up homosexuality, propping up degeneracy, propping up single motherhood, feminism, modern feminism that doesn't tout female independence in terms of working and all that, but it's just in terms of absolute degeneracy and sex. Now, I have no problem with sowing oats. A lot of time when I'm talking about banging all these chicks, what I'm actually talking about is sowing your oats. If you're a man, a real man, sow your oats. Even a woman, you gotta sow your goddamn oats. Because women are gonna sow their oats regardless. This crap in the 50s was nonsense. It was nonsense. Those people were repressed. They were doing the gayest stuff ever. A lot of them were drugged out of their mind. And that's what led to the damn counterculture in the first place. So anybody, I wish I could go to the 50s. Your wife would be eating them up just to give it, just to have some freedom. That's how fucked up it was, because it was ridiculous. They're eating all kinds of garbage living in asbestos houses and shit. So no, 50s weren't that great. Now, what these people do is they watch how the youth think and then they brainwash them. All right? God damn it, what the fuck? This heartburn is fucking me up. God damn. So they brainwash them. They did this in America, they did this in the Middle East. They break down these people. That's how the Middle East went from this intellectual, militaristic societies. It went from that to these moron kings that are essentially pawns of the West. And so is your little ethno state. I know you don't like that. That's what I'm telling you. Bitch. And make these people like they are. That's why you don't have any more Abdel Nassers in the Middle East. The closest thing to Abdel Nasser in the Middle East is Assad. That's the closest you're gonna get, and maybe the Iranians, the Iranian presidency. Oh, Iran's all unstable and blah, blah, blah. It's not unstable. It is poor because why? Sanctions. Because what the white supremacist oligarchs like to do, thanks to Bretton Woods Agreement and the petrodollar now, which is what they manipulated because everybody's been trying to get from under the petrodollar. OPEC was actually created to get away from the petrodollar, and we saw how they remixed that to give America absolute control because America had lost all the gold in Fort Knox by like, what was it, 1952 or some shit. I made a video about that a while ago. Go check that out. I don't remember which one it was. But yeah, man, American hegemony is a pain in the ass to everyone. England, they have their hands all up in America's business, just like the tribe does. They use it to their advantage. And one of the biggest tools is Tavistock. So you got to see Wilfred Bean, John Ress, Eric Trust. These guys were the forerunners of this organization. They created this organization in its modern form. And all of these guys are tied to Wharton. Because Trist himself was the one that created the Department of Social Systems and Sciences at Wharton School, where Trump went. And the cult of personality that Trump has created, or has personified, that shit was created at that school. Which is how you know where it is. Now, if you look at this man's background, like I said in the previous video, how the fuck did he just come out of nowhere and buy up all that prime real estate in 1980s Manhattan? That was unheard of. And at first he was just doing basic commercial real estate. Buying up all those distressed, shitty properties around Grand Central, because Grand Central was a complete shithole until Mayor Dinkins, and they always talk shit about Mayor Dinkins. Don't ever compare Mayor Dinkins to this fucktard Adams. Adams is a fucking clown. Mayor Dinkins was the best goddamn thing to happen to the city. Forget about that other jackass. Dinkins was the one. He always made these little goofy ass committees, but he's the one that started pushing selling New York itself. He's the one that started that shit. He's the one that said, hey, Grand Central looks nice, let's market this. The Chrysler Building, let's market that. He's the one that started that. And then when Trump bought that CIA front group, Resorts International, when he bought Resorts International, that's when he got propped up. Because then all of a sudden, he has all these casinos in his portfolio. Now, he's good at finding good properties. He's good at finding places that have good traffic, but he's not good at running shit. That's always been his weakness. And so, by the early 90s, late 80s, right after he bought all this shit, he was running out of money. So he went to Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross is the front man for the Rothschilds. I ain't lying about none of this shit. He's the one that bailed out Donald Trump back in the day, where Donald Trump likes to brag that he was $500 million in the hole. He went to get a $500 million loan from the bank. He ended up $500 million in the hole, and they became partners. Yeah, they became partners, all right. Not him with the bank. No, the Rothschilds, under their frontman Ross, became partners in Resorts International. Now, under this quote-unquote partnership, Trump was allowed to maintain control, but they had the controlling interest, the real controlling interest, and they made the lion's share of money. You got to remember, this entire organization was started, talking about Resorts International, it was started by Mossad and the CIA. Started by Mossad and the CIA, so that they could launder money, and they could use the winnings and shit as a slush fund for their little criminal activities that these organizations like to do. Okay? And they were the ones, because remember, what the hell's that guy? Koch? Not Koch. Goddamn, what the hell? There was a tribalist that Trump was real close with that I talked about a long time ago. His little booty buddy. And I forget that man's name. But he's the one that set up the deal for Trump to buy most of the assets when Resorts International went to shit. Because some of the biggest names in that organization was like Rosenbaum, David Rockefeller, Edmund Rothschild, and Meyer Lansky. A lot of those guys were tribalists, but a lot were just regular white supremacists as well. Because again, CIA, Bush, Mossad, Rothschild. And the Bush family, make no mistake about it, the Bush family is a white supremacist oligarch family. They're an old school white supremacist oligarch family. Do not delude yourself. Do not delude yourself. Those guys, that's one of the most powerful families in this country. And these are the kind of guys that are behind Donald Trump. And there's a lot of these billionaires, quote unquote, self-made, that aren't self-made. To piggyback off of what Millionaire Bachelor was talking about, there's a lot of these motherfuckers that are quote unquote self-made, but they're not really self-made. They're groomed at a young age. They come from white supremacist oligarch families. Gates comes from a white supremacist oligarch family in Seattle. They're old money. They're not super like $100 trillion rich, but they were millionaires and they were socialites. His mother had a lot of connections with the military through IBM. Jeff Bezos, his parents were well off. Jeff Bezos is a CIA asset, a la Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover, the eccentric billionaire, was CIA. Julia Childs, CIA. Elon Musk, his father owned a gem mine. So they make a lot of these semiconductors and all kinds of shit out of. He owns a gemstone mine. On top of that, Elon Musk's mother is an old school white supremacist oligarch who was a model. But her family's already rich. Already rich. She's always kicking it down there in Soho and shit. I ain't lying, man. I'm kicking the real shit. Elon Musk and Piero Midier, who both started eBay and then later PayPal, or was it the reverse? Whatever. They're both tied to the NSA, just like AT&T. All right. We all know what the NSA does, thanks to it was an Edward Snowden, and they're spying on everybody. Elon Musk actually tried to join the NSA back in the day, but he couldn't because he wasn't a citizen. But he loves the organization and he loved the idea as a whole. He's an avid supporter. Most of his money comes from government contracts. And he's heavily tied to the government. They try to paint him as this Tony Stark pro free speech kind of guy, but it's all bullshit. He just capitulated to Brazil's requests to censor certain topics that the government doesn't like, certain people that the government doesn't like. And he capitulated. And if he did that there, you know goddamn well he did it here. And we all know he does. He censors, whenever black people talk about certain shit he doesn't like, they get censored. And this isn't a conservative, liberal bullshit. That shit's not real. The left-right paradigm is two wings of the same goddamn bird. I don't give two hot shits about some fake-ass champagne liberal. Okay? Because it ain't nothing but a goddamn conservative that just happens to not say nigga as much in front of black people. You know what I'm saying? These people are all clicked in. And they're connected. And they're pawns. None of these front street billionaires have any power. That's why Elon took out, what the hell's that place? That's why he took out Evo Morales. He did that for America, and in turn, it would benefit him because he gets cheap lithium. Bolivia's destabilized, so if another country happens to go socialist like Colombia, quote unquote, did, and Venezuela's not really socialist. The socialism that they don't like is the fact that this guy nationalized the oil. That's what they're pissed at. If this guy nationalized the electric grid and kept the oil private to allow American corporations to come up in there, nobody would have touched Chavez, especially if he didn't do anything to benefit the black Venezuelans. Because he's sending the criminals here. The blacks are staying down there just like the blacks from Cuba. Most of them don't come here. For what? Unless they would do sports. But yeah, they're all controlled. Trump, propped up in the 80s. Propped up in the 80s. And then by the 90s, you had Trump Tower, or late 80s, after he got bailed out by the Rothschilds. Trump Tower, Trump Casino, all these other places having these huge boxing matches with Mike Tyson and all these guys taking pictures with all these celebrities, Jesse Jackass, Don King, presidents around the world, just building up. He's going on Oprah. He's going on Donahue. He's talking about if he'd be the president, he'd do this, and he'd pretend to be a Republican and push all these Democratic policies and whoop-de-whoop. That was all Tavistock. All of that was Tavistock. Because he's a product of Wharton. Eric Trist is one of the founders of Tavistock, and he created the social engineering program at Wharton where this motherfucker went. They're all tied in. They're all tied in, man. And the whole point is to get this retard, because what Trump did in his last presidency, he did his cult of personality shit. He's got these diehard fans that are brainwashed. If you bring up his tribal affiliations and the fact that he's the most diehard Zion cook ever, they'll ignore you. They'll be like F the Jews and blah, 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 say all this anti-Jewish shit. But then as soon as you mention this guy's daughter, as soon as you mention his connection to the Kushners, as soon as you mention his connection to the guy whose name I can't remember, the Jewish guy in Manhattan, the big real estate guy. God damn, I can't remember the man's name. As soon as you mention all that shit, they ignore all that. So what, man? He's gonna drain the swamp. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Then he's putting blinking and shit in. Yeah, okay, he's draining the swamp. But he fills it with the worst swamp monsters ever. Yeah. He was even worse than that clown half-Bama who was backed by Soros and the Warburgs. And this isn't code. Remember, the Warburgs control Citibank and they control Bank of America. Citibank picked half of Obama's cabinet. All these guys are puppets. Now, what Tavistock is doing is they're trying to break down the hegemony of America while maintaining the status of the Anglos. Because BRICS is coming up and they're going to probably adopt some Bancor type system so that they don't get Bretton Woods by China. Because China was actually at the last Bretton Woods agreement, as was the Soviet Union. But I don't really think China wants to have that kind of status as the world's #1 reserve currency. They have reserve currency status, but they don't want to really be in that position. They mostly just want to trade, build themselves up to where they'll never be in the position they were in back in the day ever again. That's their whole deal. And I'm not saying they're not doing shade tree shit. They're doing fucked up shit. All these guys, there's no good guys in this. There's no good guys in this. Tavistock's whole goal is to break down society, make you into slaves. If there's no real tight family union and the men are weak, then they're not going to raise strong sons. They're not going to raise men who pose a threat to the system. These children aren't going to think for themselves. They're going to pay attention to the television. They're going to do what the television tells them to do. They're going to think like women. They're going to be worried about shopping. They're not going to think outside the box. They're not going to vote with their dollar in any meaningful form. And they're going to accept the fact that instead of owning a home and leveraging equity, that they can just rent forever and ever and ever and ever. And I understand some people don't want to do that. Or they don't want to own a home because of the burden of insurance tax and all these liabilities. I completely understand that. But ultimately, by making everybody rent everything and accepting it, you pretty much own their ass. You own them. Look now, people don't even buy their own music anymore. They rent the music. And they rent off these live streams. They don't even download MP3s. They rent, everything is rented. They rent their Wi-Fi. They rent their house. They rent their car. They rent their music. They rent their TV shows. They rent their video games. Everything's a rental. You don't own shit. And they don't give a fuck. And they don't question it because it's convenient. And the problem with that is obviously they could just take it away at any moment. And Tavistock, over time, has brainwashed these people into accepting this and accepting more and more tyranny. I talked about this a long time ago, Jack and Danny's. Remember, the boiling frog in the pot. Go back. I talked about this shit a long time ago. That's what this is. That's what Donald Trump's doing. And this is not an endorsement for Kamala. Kamala is going to do what the tribe wants, and they're going to try to go after Iran. If that moron gets in there, they're going to beeline for Iran. I ain't lying about none of this shit. And we all know what the fuck that's going to end up happening. That's game over. If that happens, it's game over. Because if Iran actually retaliates for real, the West that backs the apartheid ethno state is going to jump in, and then Russia's going to jump in because that's right on the border, balls deep in their country. They can't afford that. And plus, Iran has a pretty strong military, so it's just going to be a shitstorm. Because remember, America, yeah, they took parts of Syria, but what happened? The mutual pact agreement happened. Iran came in and they were fucking shit up now. Now America touched up on Russia a couple times in Syria, but America got touched up too by mercenaries and shit. America got touched up to the point where they start backing out and then they just start having the terrorists run the area, steal the oil to pay for all the shit that they were doing there. And we can talk about, those were terrorists, those were freedom fighters. They were fucking freedom fighters. There's no moderate beheaders, you dumbass. They take a terrorist group or a mercenary group, they rename them and move them over here, then they rename them and move them over there. They take them out of Idlib, rename them, back them by the Turks, and move them over here. That's what they do. That's what they've been doing in the Middle East for years, whether it was the Muslim Brotherhood, or any of these other goofy-ass organizations. Like, al-Nusra was literally ISIS. Al-Nusra was ISIS, and then it became al-Nusra. This is where the al-Nusra front now. Remember they were gassing rabbits to show everybody that they had gas, and they were trying to gas Damascus, but then they dropped it, and then we had the whole fake Assad's gassing his own people for no reason scandal. All this crap is Tavistock. All that cognitive dissonance to where you see something that's clearly bullshit and you just believe the TV instead because you don't want to think about this. That's Tavistock. And that's who Trump is backed by. That's who Trump is backed by. You can look this shit up. Look up how his mannerisms. Everything he's done is from that goddamn program at Wharton. And then he just happens to buy a CIA shell company that owns a bunch of casinos. Then, after he goes to shit, and that was also run by a CIA frontman. Forgot his name. I think it was James Crosby. James Crosby was the CIA frontman that ran Resorts International. So this nigga gets that organization, runs it into the fucking ground, gets bailed out by the Rothschilds. Then all of a sudden he's on every corner. His name's on every goddamn corner. He's the McDonald's of casinos and hotels. Becomes a quote unquote billionaire. His daughter marries into the tribe. That's a sacrifice, a dowry. Now he's on TV. He's got a game show that puts him into the minds of people. That's how they did Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan was propped up the same goddamn way, Jack and Andy's. He was propped up the same goddamn way because he used to be a liberal. He was a Democrat. He was a liberal, just like Trump. And then when he became the governor of California, he became this hardcore conservative. We got to stop the blacks from, we got to institute gun control. We got to institute no-fault divorce. Like Ronald Reagan did all that shit, sending jobs overseas. He essentially bodied the industrial belt, turned it into the Rust Belt. He created the damn Rust Belt. It wasn't the damn Rust Belt until he got in there and signed those bills to send all those jobs overseas. And this is a continuation of that shit. Trump is a Tavistock cuck, and he's clicked to the Zio-cucks. He's tribe mobbed up with the air sniffers, Tavistock, and the FBI. And they want to take him out because his policies, if he is really stubborn, and plus he likes to just run his mouth and say too much, even though he's clicked with the tribe, they're not going to protect him. because they want that war with Iran more than anything. That's their centerpiece, so that they can start their agenda. But I ain't gonna touch that. You already know how these motherfuckers on this side are. Yeah, man. That's all I gotta say, bitch.